Hello, everybody. Today is the 27th of November, and we're doing business and security stories. I forgot what day it was for a second. I had to, mentally calibrate.
Good job.
Yeah.
Powered through it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough out here. I've had a weird, super crazy, 2 weeks where I've had to really keep my head down on a project. And I just came out of it today, and I'm like...
It's the first day where it feels like it's before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, here's a man who thinks that you did not do enough. And this man has been vocal about this before. He's not changing his tune or anything, but maybe this makes me think he's willing to say these things because he's starting to see the AI future. And this is how much value you're going to have in the AI future.
Infosys founder defends the call for 70-hour work weeks and says that he doesn't believe in a work-life balance. But at least according to the article, he's lived the non-work-life balance since before he was the founder of Infosys and has worked 7 days a week. And he's been around long enough. This was India, I think.
Yeah.
India apparently went to a national 5-day work week from a 6-day work week in the 1980s, and he was around for that. And he's like, no, that's a terrible idea. We shouldn't do that.
He noted, I loved seeing my kids for 1 hour every night.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
Hour and a half included dinner and time with the kids. But he says because it was so rare, he treasured it more.
Who do you think was taking care of those children when he wasn't around?
It is kind of wild sometimes when you live in the city. It's both of your parents, both of a kid's parents have to work in order to be able to afford to hire a nanny to take care of the kids. It's
not anymore, because the kids are going to be taken care of by the robots as they are being taught by the robots. How do we know that? Well, the traditional systems of teaching kids are failing.
Bay Area tech company Chegg lays off hundreds more. CEO blames Google and AI. So it turns out that you can have the kids use that instead of Chegg's teaching services. Online school stuff.
The future does not look bright for Chegg. And people are also spending way too much money on food because they want to have it delivered, which marks it up 40%. But one company has managed to fumble a bit of their valuation.
Grubhub just sold for $650 million. 4 years ago, it was worth $7.3 billion. I think $650 million is perhaps a bit of an overvaluation.
I guess DoorDash took all the business?
But
both are used still very frequently on restaurants I've seen, on their websites.
The margin for those apps should be $3.
But no, they mark everything up.
Yeah,
so much.
Absurdly so. I can't get any of that where I live, but some people I know who live in town mention that, I got something DoorDashed, and they'll tell me what they paid for it, and I'm like, that's insane.
I got 4 nuggets from McDonald's, and it was only $25.
It's you realize you're paying a car payment? That's what that's for.
Yeah.
And another big loser in today's business model, and for the longest time, it seemed like they were just sort of ignoring this. No, there's nothing wrong. My leg is on fire, but nothing is wrong. No, we have to maintain this. But finally, they're giving up.
Comcast has spin off cable networks that were once the entertainment giants' star performers. There are now literally YouTube channels that have better production values than CNBC.
Certainly better information. And if they follow through with ending pharma ads, these guys are gone. That's a huge part of their income. They can't live without it.
Ask your doctor today about fake drug.
And no one asks their doctor.
No.
Those are don't say bad things about us payments. Mm-hmm. Will they start saying bad things about them? They might not go that far. And Google realizes that we get lots of spam. They don't do anything about it on the phones, but they're going to try to do it in your inbox.
Google may soon let you create email aliases in an effort to fight spam. So this is just, random numbers and letters or whatever not even necessarily at Gmail, because Google already lets you create aliases. So you could be your name dot something at gmail.com, I think, isn't it? Or no, your name plus something at gmail.com. And that works as an alias. But some companies have gotten wise to that and will strip off the alias to try to get your real email, which is usually a sign that they're selling your email and they don't want you, to use the alias. So I have a Gmail account that I've only ever used with the old alias system, and it gets spam for not the alias part of it, which is annoying. And this would be an attempt to defeat that with like aliases where there's a table somewhere that maps this to you.
It's always a race, though, right? Like, it's a race to the bottom. Every time you fix it, something else happens.
Yeah, it's rough.
Well, speaking of race to the bottom, the replacement for all those TV channels that are no longer relevant is streaming. But streaming is also a terrible value now, and people maybe just aren't interested in the less popular ones.
Apple TV Plus has spent $20 billion on original content, but no one actually watched it, so they haven't recouped their investment. So Apple is probably going to let other people stream it for money.
Which, wasn't that kind of like the original Netflix model where things just went on to Netflix eventually and then they paid for it? Like,
or the cable model.
Yeah.
Or Arrested Development. Netflix said, hey, we'll fund the last season of Arrested Development so that it can be on Netflix. And that took way too long to go through, and then it was kind of a weird, disjointed mess.
That was a strange season.
Well, here's your weekly reminder that you're old.
TechCrunch, World of Warcraft turns 20. Good Lord.
Almost able to drink. Can buy cigarettes.
November of 2004. So this is an ad for relaunching WoW Classic, right? I hope TechCrunch got a lot of money for this.
Didn't they?
They already did that.
Didn't they raise the cigarettes to 21?
Did they? I don't actually know.
Maybe that was somewhere else. The UK's doing the thing where the number never goes up again. Like if you can't smoke now, you can never smoke.
Oh.
I think that was the UK, right?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I remember doing that story.
And Google is being threatened not just by the regulators and not just by companies finding them out of existence, but also their very existence. Because is the search what it used to be?
No.
It's not. Are all the AI companies scrambling to take their place? They are. So maybe they're going to try to clean up their act a little bit.
The Verge's headline is Google is further cracking down on sites publishing parasite SEO content.
What a great image they've done here.
It's not just that. They're cracking down on a lot of the things that we've complained about before, which is most of the search results are just terrible. And was that deliberate? Was that to sell ads? Like what? There had to have been an incentive from Google to keep it this terrible for this long.
Well, think about this, though. A lot of that trash is being generated by their AI enemies. So by weeding that out, they're hurting them.
So that's not actually a good search engine product is why they're doing this. To hurt their business enemies is why they're doing it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it, but that seems like a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those patterns where it's like, here's the thing that I want, a good functioning search engine. But I'm willing to put up with a lot of non-functional search engine because there is no alternative. And so I'll just spend 10 extra minutes or 20 extra minutes or 30 extra minutes digging through all of that trash so that Google can make a little extra ad revenue money. And I eventually, maybe possibly, find the thing that I'm working for. Because that's kind of what the relationship feels like now, instead of Google being a fast, efficient tool for me to do the thing that I want to do.
Sad. And another sad thing that we've had this year is disappointment after disappointment in the gaming scene. So many big, high-budget games have been under development for nearly a decade. It came out, and everybody said, this is garbage. We hate
or
this.
they just said,
Yeah, it's not for me. And maybe because of that disappointment, everybody is looking back to some older games, which made us feel good.
Baldur's Gate 3 is doing even better in 2024 than it did in 2023, with daily users up 20%, and Larian thinks it knows why, because mods are very good. This is on Games Radar. I'd give you another reason, which is Baldur's Gate 3 is trying to be a fun game, whereas other games maybe are like, there's some fun stuff here, but we've bolted on all this other stuff to make you feel bad about yourself. So
you gotta grind your dailies, bro.
It's not.
You gotta get your loot boxes.
It's like, in order for you to get to the fun, you've got to grind your way through some of the not fun stuff. And
I do think mods are a big part of that, though. Like, I wish more games allowed you to mod them, but also to have like community-run servers, so that way, you don't get a Battleborn situation where it's like, oh, we took the servers offline and now you can never play again.
Or even just Skyrim. Like Skyrim was the epitome of this, and they've regressed. Like, they literally have rolled out stuff to break mods so that you have to go through the shitty launcher.
And they've tried time after time to monetize those mods.
Yeah.
Which seems like the way to go. Now, does it help Larian that people are still playing the game. They're not making money off of it at this point. They've said there's never going to be a DLC.
If players are up 20%, they sold 20% more copies.
Well, it could be the old people who
Coming
bought
back
it.
to revisit. I would like to come back and revisit at some point soon.
It's
now
just
that they have mods.
The people coming back for the second serving are more than it was the original time.
That's the slot that fits into that shaped hole is DLC. So Larian can do official DLC, or maybe get some of the content that was written for the game but didn't quite make it in. It's like, go ahead and publish that.
They've said that they can't.
The Wizards
relationship
of the Coast,
system and all that stuff, they've said they kind of painted themselves into a corner.
That doesn't sound very capitalistic or market forces-y.
And here's capitalism. Right. Well, this is not even capitalism. This is just basic supply demand. There is a certain point where your customer will walk away, thankfully.
Half of young Norwegians say online piracy is an acceptable way to save money.
The young Norwegians are okay.
The whole time I was reading this, listen, the local flea markets and that sort of stuff, DVDs have gotten absurdly popular again around here. Not pirated DVDs, but like old DVDs. Like the price has crept up. It used to be that you could get a full box set for, like $10. And now it's like $100 for the full, all 7 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation on DVD. And part of it is just because people are buying DVDs again because it's cheaper than anything else.
It's amazing. Japan still is completely in love with physical media.
Yeah.
They never went to the streaming stuff.
I think it's because of the suffering, because of the bundling of things that you don't want. It's like, oh, we'll give you this, but there's going to be some suffering.
I like to buy DVD sets of shows I really, really like, just so I know I have my copy and that it won't get taken from me.
I don't feel that way at all.
Really?
Yeah. I don't like to watch things over and over and over unless it's really, really amazing.
Huh.
What?
What?
I find comfort in watching the episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation for the 47th time.
Yeah.
It feels
Sometimes I just need some consistency in the universe.
It feels a little bit like a coping mechanism.
Maybe,
yeah. That's not unfair. That's reasonable.
Well, I like to put these in because this is a headline I'm thinking gets a lot of clicks because they keep running basically the same story over and over, but it's true and it's a big change.
The headline is the top 10 best-selling CPUs on Amazon are all AMD chips, with the 2-year-old Ryzen 7 5700X sitting at the tippety-top, and Intel's best effort is relegated to 12th place. Aww.
It's tough. Been a tough year for Intel.
Well, AMD did almost fumble their 9000 series launch, but then they got the 9800X 3D where they knocked it out of the park. So, and the hilarious thing is it was only 30% AMD's fault with their launch because Windows really hobbled it, and it's less hobbled now.
Well, Microsoft doesn't want you to think about that. They don't want you to worry about anything. Actually, you know what? They don't want you to have any hardware
You'll own
in
nothing.
your home.
Yeah.
That's ideal. That's where we really want to take you.
Windows 365 Link is a $349 mini PC that streams Windows from the cloud. So you have this, and it's just going to upgrade itself. And it's Windows 11, but your data's not here, your computer's not here. It's just a thin client. It's a subscription.
Eventually, I got to think, they're thinking 15 years down the road, they just want this to be a pair of glasses.
I think this is also another when we talk about the whole bundling of things people want and what they don't, there is actually a lot of people are ready for a device like this, but it's hilarious because Microsoft just can't help itself, and they're going to heap on all kinds of stuff people don't want with the cloud experience for Windows 11. It's like, oh, we would like for our metrics to go up on this, this, and this. And it's like, but this isn't useful to me. I don't care about this. Why are you getting in my way?
The AI thing is going to check your screen constantly.
Oh, yeah. We have some hilarious stories about that where it's like, it's also checking the CEO's email, and the guy in the mailroom can read the CEO's email. But the Windows 11 experience being as bad as it is going to hurt adoption of these devices, I think.
Well, when it comes to people not wanting certain things on their devices, that is the whole business model of this one. However, I think it's important to put out a cautionary note here that this is not the first time this has been tried. And every other time, it's been cops, ultimately. It's been cops selling the phones and monitoring the phones. So maybe watch out for that.
The Verge's headline is a new, quote-unquote, ultra-secure phone carrier says it can make you harder to track. But the sad dystopian reality that we live in is that any device that says this is a privacy-focused service, if it's not already been co-opted by law enforcement or is law enforcement, it has just become the target of law enforcement.
So they gear it toward high-risk individuals, politicians, journalists, activists, and others, drug dealers. They don't mention that one, but that's definitely one of them. But again, you're basically like outing yourself as someone who needs protection and then putting your faith in this company to actually do it.
Can you imagine if we actually were able to buy an Android phone that was privacy-focused?
No, I can't.
By design, it's like we have designed this phone to be as secure as possible from anybody that would seek to do you harm.
Well, worldwide, we have been in a stage of basically infinite growth, right? Economically, population-wise, and especially when it comes to technology. But can it go on forever?
New data shows the number of new mobile internet users is stalling. We're not adding tons of new people on mobile because everybody already has a mobile connection. Literally everybody on the entire planet.
I think it's like 34% coverage in Africa. But apparently those other Africans are not jumping into it for whatever reason. Could be financial, I guess. And here we go with the planned obsolescence. And they might not have planned this, but they certainly didn't do anything about it.
D-Link tells users to trash their old VPN routers over a bug too dangerous to identify. Basically, the bad guys have figured out a bug, and if you're targeted, they will compromise your device, and they're going to stay in there, and D-Link is not going to fix it. The only fix, throw it away. It's an old device, it's unsupported, it's out of warranty. Trash it.
That's not very environmentally friendly.
It's really not.
That is a remote code execution through your router. So basically, if your router is plugged into the internet, apparently somebody can just take it over.
We're going to set fire to children in Africa with it. It's going to be amazing.
If they have a phone. They might not have one. I wonder what the average age of phone adoption for African kids is. We could measure mental health if it's like way later.
Yeah,
We could
it'd
see.
be interesting.
Yeah. And Apple also has a terrible problem, which they're not giving us a lot of information about.
Apple says Mac users targeted in zero-day cyber attacks. Basically, somebody found a way to bypass something in Apple's security, and now the malware can live forever on Macs.
It was a JavaScript renderer and something else. So basically, a bad web page could get into your Mac.
Thanks, Safari.
And Ubuntu, also on the list.
Ubuntu Linux impacted by decade-old need restart flaw that gives you root. So need restart is a little utility that checks to see if you need to restart or whatever. It's not installed by default. I checked a couple systems that I have with this, and it wasn't even installed. So I guess that's good.
But there's several interpreters, Python and Ruby and all this stuff. And if they have access, they can force those to get you through need restart. And NSO Group has had to reveal some documents in a court case. This is always the time we find all the juicy details.
NSO Group admits cutting off 10 customers because they were abused its Pegasus spyware, say unsealed court documents. Now, Pegasus we've covered before, but it's the 10 out of 10 very bad spyware. If you've been targeted by it, it's on your phone, and there's not very much you can do to detect it, much less remove it. And the NSO Group will sell to very, very wealthy customers. And so they've cut off about 10 customers because they just abused the crap out of it.
I'm pretty sure NSO said that they didn't sell to bad people.
Well, it's worse than that. Because another thing that was revealed in these documents, because, NSO is kind of like, well, we give it to them, and then what they do with it, it's whatever. Yeah, it's like the 230 defense.
Yeah.
But what these documents revealed is that the purchaser of NSO Group provides nothing but the information on who they want to hack. NSO Group does all the hacking. Because they know that their users are like Saudi princes, right? They're not going to figure out.
No, they're hackers. They can handle it.
So
they got all the time and money in the world.
So it proved that NSO is actually doing the hacking. They are hands-on the ones that are doing it. And the reason they knew that these 10 people were abusing it is because they were doing it.
And this is likely the group that targeted Jeff Bezos for blackmail, which led to his divorce.
Wow.
And exit from Amazon.
And a lot of charities getting a lot of money from Mackenzie Bezos.
I think maybe Jeff's behavior with that younger gal
Yeah.
might have had something to do with the divorce. And you might want to divorce your children from Roblox because, wow, that seems like a horrible, horrible place to be. And they were outed by Hindenburg Research. They, week after week now, are announcing new things to try to protect the kids because I guess somebody's actually started to peel back the linoleum here, and there were some horrible things under it.
Roblox no longer allows users under 13 to message others outside of games. Because when they peeled back the linoleum, they found that children under 13 were horrible to each other.
Well, but even worse, there were some adults on the Roblox.
Pretending to be 13-year-olds.
Why would adults be on Roblox? For the worst reason you can imagine. They also have rated the experiences, they call them, which are like the user-generated content. And it's much harder for young kids to get into ones that haven't been vetted and rated at this point. And the deep fakes are becoming more and more of a problem. It seems like the kids are adopting the deep fakes most of all. We found out in Korea this was a big problem, and Korea took some really extreme lawmaking measures to deal with this. But it's not just there.
Explicit deepfake scandal shuts down a Pennsylvania school. So this was the students doing it to each other, not predators.
There was one child.
But the school administration tried to deal with it internally, but then the parents figured it out, and then the parents got involved, and the parents were all horrified and up in arms and freaking out.
So some kid anonymously, this school, I guess today's schools have like, comment boxes where you can go in anonymously and be like, there's a problem and you need to deal with it. So some kid reported this and the administrator ignored it. And then months later, the whole thing blew up and the parents found out about it and they sued. And they found out, it was like, oh, you did nothing about this. And so you have to quit. The administrator has to go. And the administrator was like, well, I don't know. And then all the kids walked out of the school. So
wow.
Yeah. One kid had created, I think 50 different girls had been deepfaked.
It's always girls, isn't it? It's never the boys who get deepfaked in these explicit images.
Well, look at the ratio of adult websites.
I know.
I mean, that's just human nature. No one wants to look at naked guys. I mean, a few people do.
I was going to say, there's at least one person at this table who goes the other way.
We found out that the Chinese have taken advantage of built-in backdoors in the telecoms. Remember the argument that if built-in backdoors exist?
I literally bring it up every single time.
And we're finding out some specific names now.
T-Mobile breached in major Chinese cyber attack on telecoms. It turns out the Chinese have been in T-Mobile even before. Remember the first hack that we reported on T-Mobile, and they were like, we don't even encrypt our passwords, and it's fine. It was not fine, spoiler alert. And it turns out the Chinese have been in there the whole time, and they just weren't drawing any attention to the fact that they were in the mobile network.
You're lucky you're not on social media very much. Because boy, did you just open the door for people to send you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't. Let me be clear. I don't want to see other people. Just making a point. Women have libidos too.
And this is another point that we have made ad nauseum, but as the mainstream media catches on, it bears repeating.
Modern cars are surveillance devices on wheels with major privacy risks, according to the new report. So read this and then search and replace modern cars with mobile phone. Same thing, because these applications are very, what do you call it when they make a lot of assumptions that are not in your best interests?
Evil.
Yeah, they're
just evil.
Well, and plus now we've heard several car manufacturers use the phrase mobile phone on wheels.
Yeah.
That's their vision of it.
I mean, even operating systems. Windows does not operate in your best interests all of the time, period.
None of the time, right?
I'm sure, we've always talked about, there's probably somebody who's raising their hand in those meetings saying, I don't think our users will like this.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't matter.
I was like, should we do this?
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't.
So this is Australia, and they put together this little infographic here about the Australian car companies, which are mostly imports, and in terms of what they're doing to you as an Australian. So I don't think there's a safe place to go here, except old cars. Very old at this point.
They also start to talk about how even if you take the SIM card out of your phone, a lot of the phones have car-to-car communication, and while they don't offload data, it's only a matter of time before one car is like, hey, I can't seem to use my radios to get on the internet. Will you send this data for me?
Which we know that Apple's doing now.
Yeah.
With phones, not cars. They failed at their car. And we've talked a little bit in the past about Fitbit and all these fitness trackers, because people in the military, people bodyguarding, people doing PMC work and stuff like that, they tend to, run and work out and wear these fitness trackers and stuff like that, which is a terrible security flaw. But it's even worse than that, because you don't have to have one of these. You just have to have a phone.
Anyone can buy data tracking U.S. soldiers and spies to nuclear vaults and brothels in Germany. So they talk about not just the app connection, but even just your mobile phone position records a lot of the time are for sale.
Or where you touch the towers. That tracks your movement perfectly. It can triangulate you. So all of this is being recorded. It's being sold by third-party data brokers. Some people have bought some of it, and they were like, oh, look where you're going. You're clearly an American spy or soldier in Germany. And you do the same thing every day. You go to this place that's an airplane hangar that's not listed as an airplane hangar every day. So maybe leave your phone at home.
Imagine if we had a world where you could just buy a device and the device is not tied to your identity.
Well, that would just be a free-for-all of terrorism. It would just, you look out the
That's
window.
unimaginable.
Yeah, everything would just be on fire. That's where that leads. And when it comes to tracking you, they're getting better and better at it and coming up with new, novel ways to do it. And this one is really terrifying.
New AI tool tracks your steps by reading the bacteria that you carry. It's like, we can tell this person's been in a dank basement because of the bacteria that's here.
I loved how, remember the story about the blobs on the beach? They're like, oh, we know these came from a really affluent neighborhood because the amount of pharmaceuticals in this.
Yeah, or what pills they're taking. Yeah.
The poor people would not be on this many SSRI inhibitors. They can't afford that. So the idea here is if you walk through a mall and you touch handrails and escalators and stuff, that mall has like a fingerprint of
Bacteria,
junk
common
in the air.
bacteria.
A beach has a much different one than the woods, or like a highway might have a certain one. And they came up with 82% accuracy, going to different stores and sampling it, having somebody walk through and then testing them and figuring out which store they were in.
You get closer to Gattaca every day.
Are you going to have like a decontamination protocol every 2 or 3 times a day?
You have to burn all your clothes and get all your skin cells off.
It's going to be really inconvenient. And this is maybe a little bit of a heartening story, because I think the phone companies are getting better at this, although there might be the other side of the arms race is not visible to us, so there might already be a replacement.
Leak what law enforcement can unlock with the Graykey iPhone hacking tool. Basically, which models?
And looking good for the iPhone 18, huh? Big sea of red over there.
Is that the one that self-reboots?
And I guess this is just the newest operating system, right? The beta version of the operating system, although maybe they just haven't had time yet.
Yeah.
So harden it up.
But yeah, if you've got an older device, it's not updated or whatever, just keep in mind the cops can do. They can get everything off of that. And I forgot to go back and read this one.
I also forgot. So.
I added this one. This is a disclosure of 7 Android and Google Pixel vulnerabilities. So the takeaway from this is really amazing, but also Temu was using one of these CVE exploits because they didn't have enough permission. And this is, again, a data point in my please, for the love of God, just run the application in a sandbox, because it is going to be surreptitiously handsy with your data. It's like, this is my data. I'm going to take it now. And so...
your data? My data.
Yeah, and so this has been a thing for a while. This was only discovered because somebody was like, surely to goodness the Temu app is doing something it shouldn't. Yeah, it turns out it was.
I don't trust Temu.
Yeah, well, with good reason, apparently.
Do you trust Amazon?
Not really. No.
I don't trust them. I mean, I do business with them because what else are you going to do?
So this is actually a cluster of like 6 or 7 vulnerabilities, which is like that's how things are done now. You don't just have one security vulnerability. You have to break through one thing to break through another thing to break through another thing, and then that eventually gets you into the full phone. That's basically where we are now, whether that's Apple or Android. But running things in a sandbox is another layer to that security onion. Come on.
Security onion. It tastes terrible. It's hard to chew.
Well, that's what it should be for hackers. It's
Yeah.
like, oh. It's like, am I in the real world or am I still in the Matrix? You don't know, and that's the point.
Pretty sure it's simulated.
Yeah. There's a lot of holographic universe evidence. Wait, I thought we had the UFO disclosures in the government thing.
Did
we cut that
I might have misclicked it.
Oops.
Oh, oops.
Well, there were UFO disclosure hearings this week, which were kind of funny and
But that
interesting.
that wouldn't even be. Yeah, we missed that yesterday.
I think some of the disclosure is a smoke screen to cover the fact that we have probably a neutrino laser or something. It seems like neutrino flux can render nuclear material inert. So it's like, oh, the UFOs are deactivating the nuclear warheads. And it's like, it's an F-79.
Anyway.
It was kind of a nothing burger, though.
It always is.
They admitted that, like, they said, oh, we got X number. Like, half of them were birds and balloons and stuff. And I was like, what about the other half? I don't know.
Of the half that I looked at, a lot of them looked like balloons that were half inflated.
There was this one that chased our planes at a speed that shouldn't exist. We don't know.
The one that sank into the ocean mysteriously. It was like the Stargate. It's literally like, did they just copy paste this from a Stargate script? Like, I don't. Okay.
Maybe that was the guy who goes and repairs the undersea cables. So he's like, oh, I gotta get out there. That's just straight down. Anyway, we will see you guys on Friday with more stories, more nonsense.
Prelude to the nonsense section coming up Friday. We'll see you then.
Bye.